Hello everyone, glad to be here. Hopefully you enjoyed lunch. I want to thank Allison Harris for inviting me to be here, but more importantly, Ben, the intern, spoke at a school, Plymouth White Marsh High School, and I always learned that you're good at your job if you speak at a place and they invite you to speak once more. Either that or your last resort, but probably Ben liked it, but I'm glad to be here. My name is Jordan Burnham. And I'm a professional public speaker on mental health and suicide prevention. So it's my job to go around the country. I get to speak to young adults and audiences of all ages on not just my story, but on this topic of mental health. Now I know as soon as I walk up here and start talking, you're thinking, why is this GQ wannabe kid lecturing us and why mental health? But I never want my presentations to be a lecture, more of a conversation between me and you, my audience, on an important subject, which is mental health. Now right off the bat, I know everyone's still munching away, but right off the bat, I would love to know from the audience, what are some of the words you associate with mental health? Any words that pop into your head?
Crazy.
Crazy? Okay.
Depression.
Depression? Okay.
Unstable.
Unstable. All right, three very good words that people think of. Here's an easier, kind of fun one. Who are some of the athletes we think of when we hear the words mental health? All right. Meta world peace. I'm going to call them on our test, but all right. So those are good examples. A lot of times when I ask that question, the main ones that I hear, Ricky Williams, Dennis Rodman, Meta world peace, and I hear Mike Tyson a lot too. I wonder why. So we think of a lot of times these extreme examples, and I love being able to speak on this topic, speak on my story because I like to shed light to this subject of mental health, which a lot of times is put into a negative bubble, the extreme forms. We get to hear stories like Ricky Williams, we get to hear stories like Juan Artest, we get to hear Dennis Rodman and see Dennis Rodman, but the media doesn't necessarily like to send out stories and talk about stories that focus on mental health but aren't sexy to talk about. Perfect example of this is a football player, Tommy Blake. For those who don't know, a lot of people don't know who Tommy Blake was. He was still alive, excuse me, but he was a college football player in 2008. He went to Texas Christian University. Going into his senior year, 2008, he was preseason All-American. He was also top 5 on the draft board. Definitely was going to the NFL. During that year, he missed 5 games for disclosed reasons. Wasn't said why. Now, at the end of the year, his agent came out and said that he actually has social anxiety and has depression. Now, he missed the combine, and he has a pro day, which is where you run, you show your strength, everything. And he actually ran a 40 faster than 4 of the top 5 defensive ends that year. He bench pressed more than 2 out of that same top 5, but when the draft came around, Tommy Blake wasn't drafted. A lot of people might say, well, maybe it's because of the 5 games, maybe it's because, his pro day wasn't impressive enough, but people have come out and said that a lot of NFL teams saw him having a mental health disorder as more of a liability than a broken leg, broken arm, or torn ACL. And that's kind of the stigma associated with mental health, but that story wasn't reported by the media as much as Dennis Rodman wearing a wedding dress and changing his hair color every other day. That story wasn't reported on like Ricky Williams retiring and smoking marijuana to find himself, because it's not a sexy story. Because Tommy Blake on the outside, it looked like everything was going fine. He had everything going for him, but he was battling this depression, this social anxiety on top of that, but people didn't see that. I can relate to this because when I get up here and I start speaking, I know a lot of people don't look at me and say, maybe he has depression, or maybe this is someone who tried to take his own life. But today I don't want to just focus on just me, just my story, but on mental health issues and mental health disorders. Mental health issues is something we all go through. It's how you view yourself internally through different situations. For instance, going through a tough breakup, a tough divorce, feeling like you don't fit in, going through a stressful time, an anxious time in your life. Those are your mental health issues. Then there are mental health disorders which you're diagnosed with, like depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. Now, 22% of Americans will suffer from a mental health disorder in a given year. 20 to 25% of young adults will suffer from a mental health disorder in a given year. But a lot of them don't seek help. Why is that?
Embarrassment?
Embarrassment.
You may not recognize.
All right, may not recognize. Signs and symptoms.
Lack of financial support through healthcare.
Absolutely. Lack of financial support through healthcare. All legitimate reasons why people don't seek help. The weird thing about our society is that there's not only shame and stigma associated with having a mental health issue, having a mental health disorder, but you're looked at even more differently if you talk about those treatments, if you go to seek treatment, if you go to get help, if you talk about those issues. But I'm hoping by the end of this presentation, it makes it easier for you to be more cognizant of these signs, these symptoms, and helping someone to get help if they need to. So I'm going to start my story off with where I'm originally from, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So if I don't look this way, it's not because of you, it's just because the flyer symbol is right there. And so,
I'll help you out with that.
Thank you. So as far as mental health issues go for people from Pittsburgh, you know, Heinz Ward just got released, that's tough. Yamir Yager and Max Talbot now play for the Flyers. That's tough. However, this is actually the first year I'm actually optimistic about the Pittsburgh Pirates since Barry Bonds played for us when he was skinny and his head didn't look like a milk dud. But anyways, growing up in Pittsburgh, I had my mom who works at an elementary school and my dad who's an athletic director. Growing up with my dad being an athletic director, I was exposed to so many sports. He also played college basketball. And he'll make the joke that in college, you know, he's a skinny basketball player, athletic, but now it looks like he swallowed 2 basketballs. But I was exposed to so many different sports, and I love playing all of them. I love being able to play soccer, basketball, baseball. Golf was my ultimate favorite, absolutely. You know, we had a semi-decent backyard. It wasn't that big, but it was big enough to the point where I thought I could play any sport, even golf. And so what I would do is on the side of the house, I had a rubber ball, a lacrosse ball, and I'd throw it against the house, you know, do some ground balls, everything. 2 broken windows later, that was taken away from me. And the other thing is our neighbor was an avid golfer. He loved golfing, and we both shared that passion. And so one day, I'm actually using my 9-iron, and I'm trying to, you know, perfect my swing, and I hit this great shot, and 2 seconds later, I hear a smash in our shed. And I go up to my dad's room, and I said, Dad, you won't believe it, I perfected my 9-iron, I got it great. He said, oh yeah, really? I said, yeah, if you go to the shed inside after the broken window, you'll see just how great it is. So growing up, I was just always involved with sports. Now, on top of that, I have my sister, who's 5 years older than me, and growing up, my sister and I got to attend private school, which was great because the kids there accepted me for who I was as a person, and I fit right in. It was like being in one big family. But 3rd grade comes around and my dad gets a new job, meaning now I have to go from private school to public school. And I'm thinking that the transition will be easy. I'll gain new friends and fit right in. But I get there, couldn't be any more different. I'm made fun of for the way that I talk, for the way that I dress. I was told that I talk too proper, that I dress too preppy. And because of those things, kids will come up to me and tell me that I act white. And after hearing that for about a week, I got upset. So I had a good comeback. So someone said it to me a week later. They said, Jordan, you act white. I said, oh yeah? Well, you act stupid. What? And I got punched in the head that day. So needless to say, my transition wasn't going too smoothly. But when I got home, my sister was going through the same type of problems, the same type of issues. That's how we became so close. Best friends going through elementary school into middle school. When I got home, she became my therapist and I became hers, because she could relate to everything I was going through and vice versa. Now, besides talking to my sister, as I said, sports was big with me. I got by with 3 different things. The first was sports. Basketball, baseball, but to this day, my favorite sport, my best sport is golf. I remember growing up, I wanted to be just like Tiger Woods on the course. Some of you might not get that till dinner, but so the other thing was that I love to tell jokes. I love being the class clown. It made me feel more comfortable if people were laughing at me in a good way. And the 3rd thing was growing up, the girls thought it was aight. So I'm talking to girls, dating girls, good self-confidence booster, that going into middle school, I finally felt comfortable in my environment, the friends around me, the people around me. But 7th grade comes around, and 2 major things happen. The first was that my sister goes off to college. And I was happy for her. I was proud of her. She got a full academic scholarship to go to Penn State University. Now, even though I'm happy and proud of her, that's my best friend leaving. Who am I going to talk to now when I'm having a bad day? Who's going to be that person I can fall back on, that I can just talk to whenever I need to? I don't have my best friend anymore. Second major thing that happens is my dad goes to interview for this new job, some weird town outside of Philadelphia called King of Prussia. So first question I had was, why would anyone name a town King of Prussia? And the second question I had was, Dad, what job are you going to interview for? And he said, Upper Marion. I got so excited. I said, Dad, this is a huge step up. Give me a hug. We're coming up in the world. Kobe Bryant went there. That's amazing. He said, no, Jordan, Kobe went to Lower Marion. But are you still proud of me? I said, Dad, not so much. But still supported him on this new job interview. And so he gets offered the position and he takes it. And now I'm faced with a difficult decision. Do I stay with my mom in Pittsburgh until she gets a job out in the Philadelphia area? Or do I move with my dad right away? I knew how difficult that transition was the first time moving to a new school, trying to gain friends, so I figured I'll get it out of the way as quick as possible. So I moved to this new area, go to this new school, but I'm made fun of for the same things. The way that I talk, the way that I dress, the person that I am. But I figured this time, instead of telling people they act stupid, I'll tell a joke to fit in. Now before this joke, I didn't know anything about Philly sports fans. I just thought that all sports fans were kind and welcoming. So I'm at lunch with all my friends, and all of them are great Philadelphia sports fans. They love them, all right? They love the Philadelphia teams, you name it, they love it. So we're at lunch one day, and they said, Jordan, we know you're from Pittsburgh, we respect that, but when are you gonna switch to rooting for our teams? So as a joke, I said, well, I would love to cheer for your teams, but I actually like to cheer for teams who win championships. And I got punched in the head. So here I am again, going through this tough transition all over again. The only difference this time is my sister's not there at the end of the day to talk about what I'm going through. I don't have that one person to go and vent to anymore, and I feel like I can only keep my emotions on the inside. Because yeah, my dad's there, but he's getting adjusted to a new school. I don't want to bother him. My mom, I feel guilty for leaving her back in Pittsburgh, so I don't want to bother her. My sister's getting adjusted to college. I don't want to bother her. It was the first time I kept these depressed, lonely thoughts to myself. And there was a school therapist at my middle school. She had her own office. You could go there whenever you wanted. But I thought you only talked to a therapist in an extreme situation, like your parents getting a divorce or someone close to you passing away. I didn't know I could walk into her office and just say, hey, I'm having a bad day. Can we please just talk about it? So I shied away from her office. Now I played sports, 7th and 8th grade, and that was one thing that made me able to gain friends. I was able to kind of fit in because, fortunately, I was good enough at sports where people gained respect for me. I was able to gain friends. The tough thing about sports, though, is that it's clear on the court that your coaches are there for you. If you need to improve on anything, your coaches are there for you. If you just need some inspiration for that game that day, your coaches are there for you. But no one tells you you can have a coach outside of the court, off the field. You can have a life coach to help you when you need some inspiration emotionally and mentally. So still, I kept those thoughts to myself. I figured I didn't want to complain about them. And so going through 7th and 8th grade, I was actually able to gain some popularity. And going into 9th grade, I was voted class president, which is something I should have been really happy and proud of. But at the same time, I feel like I'm in a community, but I'm not really a part of one. I'm going to school with fake laughs, with fake smiles, with a mask on my face, hiding the fact that I feel lonely, I feel like I don't belong, I feel depressed. I figured the people that think they really know me, they have no idea who I truly am. So maybe the friends that call themselves friends, maybe they were fake. Now going through 9th grade, freshman year of high school, that was a tough transition for me. It was the first time I started doing a lot of different things. It was the first time I started trying to please other people just to fit in. Wearing certain clothes, going to parties, hanging out with certain groups of people just to fit in. 9th grade was also the first time I started drinking. And I didn't drink just to get wasted, black out for no reason. I drank because that was the one time me and my guy friends could talk about something real other than girls or sports. I'll give you the perfect example. One of my good friends in high school, his name was Tom. Tom was this huge defensive lineman football player, 6'2", 280, huge guy. We were at a party one night. Tom drank way too much. He's upstairs in a room by himself, so I'm gonna go check on him. So I get upstairs and I get close to the room and there's music playing really loud. and it sounds like he's singing, but I've never heard him sing before, so this is kind of weird. And so I get close to the door, and I crack open the door, and through that little crack, I see Tom singing and dancing to a Hannah Montana song. And so I open up the door, say, "Hey Tom, how you doing, man? Why do you know this Disney song, and why are you singing it?" He looks back at me, and to this day, I've never gotten a more serious stare. "Look, Hannah Montana is a great singer, and I love her. Cool?" It's like, I guess it has to be. There's not much you can say to a defensive lineman football player singing a Disney song at that moment, but that's just one example of something Tom would never admit or say when he was sober. That's something he could actually admit and say when he was drinking by the time he was drunk. We could make fun of him for that night, but he knew he could blame it on drinking too much the night before. That was the first negative coping mechanism I picked up in high school, was that I found out it's not awkward for guys to talk about how they feel while we're drinking. I figured that's the only way that I can express my thoughts and my emotions. Going into 10th grade. 10th grade was the first big incident, big fight with my parents that led me to go see a therapist. It was supposed to be an exciting day. I was going to take my driver's test, and I was a little nervous, but I was excited because I was under the impression that once you get your license and get a car, you get more girls. You don't, but I didn't know that at the time, so I'm very excited. So I get there, I'm a little nervous, a little anxious. I do the blinkers, get to the stop sign, stop, go to parallel park, hit the curb 5 times and fail. Now I'm really angry, I'm really upset over something that a lot of people can just shrug off and laugh about, but to me, it really upset me. But I held it on the inside, I didn't talk about it. Second time comes around, still a little nervous, a little anxious. I get there, do the blinkers, get to the stop sign, stop, go to parallel park, hit the curb another 5 times and fail again. Now this time I'm really angry, I'm really upset. I want to punch something, I want to yell or scream, curse someone out, but again I hold on to it on the inside. But the third time comes around and all I've been doing is practicing parallel parking. I knew I had it down pat. And so this third time I get there not even nervous or anxious, I do the blinkers, I get to the stop sign, and I didn't wait for the momentum of the car to completely stop, which I didn't understand because I stopped at the stop sign the way my dad does, which is ultimately why I failed. At this point, my emotions work like a rubber band. I could go back and extend for a really long period of time, holding in my negative thoughts and emotions, but when I let go, I snapped. That's what I did that day. I yelled at the driver instructor and I cursed him out because I thought he looked like a fake Bernie Mac. That made me mad for some reason. I yelled and I cursed at my dad. My dad has no idea where this is coming from. Where's the Jordan that's always happy, that's always smiling? Where's this Jordan coming from that's now yelling at me in public? So I took it as disrespect and we left. I had to walk 10 miles just to get home. Right before I get home, my mom calls. She says, "Jordan, your dad told me what happened. Calm down, meet with me and we'll talk about it." And I sit down to talk to my mom, and we don't just start talking about the driver's test, but about how I've been feeling overall, about my anger management, my sister being away at college, being at this new school. Finally, she says to me, "I think we should go see a therapist." Now, in my mind, I'm a 16-year-old guy in high school. Anything I'm going through, I can drink it off, talk to my girlfriend about it, play sports, and forget about it. One of my favorite quotes about playing sports to escape is actually from Terry Bradshaw, of course, the great dynasty of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he said that I could play a great game, and people would look at me and say, "How can you be depressed or have this anxiety when you threw some great touchdown passes?" And he said, "The football part was easy. I can concentrate for those 3 hours, but outside of that football field, that's where my life was turning to hell." And so that's an important quote to me because I realized at that point, I couldn't just escape by using sports, by drinking, or talking to a girlfriend. I really had to get help. Now, my mom talked me into going, meaning I was forced to go. And I get into my therapist's office, and I'm very judgmental because I don't want to be there. And I'm looking her up and down, and it's this older white lady. And I don't want, obviously, there's none in here because everyone's so young and beautiful. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how could she ever understand what it's like for a 16-year-old black male going through high school? How could she ever understand or relate to me like my sister could? It took me time to learn that it's a process. I'm not only finding the right therapist, but then feeling comfortable in talking to them. Because it's just like any other friendship, any other relationship, it takes time before you can truly trust that person, building that foundation and being able to talk to them. That was tough for me. That's something I had to learn on my own. because I didn't get the type of assemblies that I get today to schools. I didn't know anything about this process, so I just didn't take it seriously. 16 years old, 10th grade, that was the year I was diagnosed with depression. And I didn't know what that meant because depression, depressed, they're words that are so overused in our society, we don't know the true meaning. And there's a difference between being depressed and having depression. Anyone in here can be depressed, but when you're depressed, more times than not, you know what you're depressed about. Maybe it's the anniversary of something very saddening to you. Maybe someone close to you just passed away, going through a difficult time. But you know why you're crying. You know why you're not motivated to get up and get your day started. You know why you don't feel like yourself. But with someone like me who has depression, I can wake up one day and have no idea why I don't want to get out of bed, why I'm crying, why I have such a low self-esteem. It's very frustrating. And it wasn't whether I was going to wake up having depression or not. It's just what level am I on emotionally because of it. 1 or 2 is saying, I'm having serious suicidal thoughts, questioning being here. 9 or 10 is saying, today's a good day, but what's tomorrow going to be like? A very pessimistic way of viewing the world. And I didn't tell anyone I was diagnosed with depression. I figured if word gets out that Jordan has depression, I'll be considered weak and weird for going to see a therapist, for taking medicine. So again, I didn't tell anyone, but I just didn't take it seriously, especially the medicine part. Because a lot of times nowadays, there's stigma associated with taking an antidepressant. And I know a lot of people often ask me, my views on taking an antidepressant, which I still do. And I view it as, I don't take a pill and I'm happy. I take my antidepressant because having depression, it's difficult for me to do the easy things for other people, like getting up out of bed, taking a shower, brushing my teeth. Some days that can be a struggle. So my antidepressant gives me that jump start to the day so I can do the things that make me happy, my healthy emotional balance. And that's what I use that for. Now, again, there's a lot of stigma associated with antidepressant because people might call them just happy pills. They don't want to actually take a pill. They don't think it will help. It also doesn't help when Mike Tyson says the only reason I take Zoloft is to keep me from killing y'all. Talking to the media. But, I don't think there's too many people who take away Mike Tyson quotes. Either way, that's something that I didn't understand at that time, so I didn't take it consistently. I didn't take it every day. I made the one mistake that a lot of young adults do, is they take it for 45 weeks, feel great, because it's working, and they say, well, I'm cured of depression, I don't have to feel this way anymore, stop taking it. That's what I was doing. I was very inconsistent, is I would take it for 4 to 5 weeks, think I'm cured, go back into a downslope, try to medicate myself by drinking and playing sports, and then start taking it again. I was being very unhealthy. Going to my junior year of high school, the first thing I ever heard about junior year when I entered high school was that junior year is the most important year when it comes to grades, when it comes to sports, when it comes to SATs, ACTs, all of that. And I hated that pressure for 2 main reasons. The first was that my sister was a valedictorian in high school. She got an academic scholarship to go to Penn State University. I thought I had to live up to everything that she did. And no one ever told me that. My parents never told me that. She never told me that. But I put that unfair pressure on myself. So whenever I got a B or a C on a report card, test or quiz, I would get down on myself. Tell myself I'll never be as good as my sister. Second reason I hated that pressure was because I just wasn't a school person. I could never wake up on time. I could never pay attention in class. It felt like I was sleep deprived every day. Ages 12 to 18, you're supposed to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I was lucky to get half of that during my junior year. So I would study and I would cram for these tests all night, but because I'm sleep deprived, my brain just can't absorb any of the information that I'm trying to watch or trying to read. So I'd get up, go to take the test in the morning, have a panic attack, forget everything I learned the night before, and just break down. I was really struggling academically. Now in the middle of my junior year, I made a mistake when I cheated on my girlfriend. And it's a small school, everyone knows everyone else's business, so it was like front page news to everyone else. I had to go to school and hear smart remarks and jokes behind my back that to other people were lighthearted and funny, but to me it killed me on the inside. One night my depression got to a level 4 or 5. I wasn't sure what to do, but I put pills on my desk. And I called my girlfriend and I told her, I don't know if I'm gonna take these pills or not, but I just need help. And I have no way of saying that to my parents or my therapist. She knew that second step was to call my parents. So she calls my parents call the police, and my door's locked and I won't open it. So the police have to bust into my room to make sure I didn't take any of the pills. Now, even though I didn't take one pill, they look at my parents and say, you have to take your son to a mental hospital. Now, honestly, when we're leaving and I'm expecting a mental hospital, in my head I'm thinking of padded walls, small rooms, guys in straitjackets jumping around, asking Scotty to beam them up. I had no idea what to expect going in there. But I get there and it's a regular building. It's regular rooms, there's no padded walls, no guys in straitjackets. In fact, they look just like me, wearing the same type of clothes, but going through way worse problems. Guys who are 14, 15, already have babies, addicted to any drug you can name, already alcoholics, belong to gangs, have seen family members die right in front of them because of gang war. And here I am because I have depression and I cheated on my girlfriend, not doing well in school. I figured there was no reason for us to be in the same room, let alone the same building, and I didn't understand until our first therapy session. We all got in a circle, we said why we were there. And everyone else has these sad, traumatic stories. I'm scared to even stand up and say why I'm there. But I'm the last to go by choice. And I stand up and I say, hi, my name's Jordan. I'm here because I have depression. I'm going through a tough time in school. Not having the greatest time with my girlfriend right now. But some days I wake up just not wanting to be here. I'm sorry my story doesn't match up to any of yours. The therapist stopped me. He explained to me that it's not the situation, it's not the event, but it's how you perceive it and it's how you handle it. That's why we are all there, because we are handling our problems and our situations in a negative way, even though their problems seem way worse than mine. The most important lesson I learned, being in the mental hospital, was that we can never choose the bad things that happen to us, but we can choose how we cope with them. That's still something I keep with me to this day. And after being in there for a week, I got to meet some great people. I'll never forget the patients, their names, their stories, the therapists I got to talk to. It made me appreciate the things that I had in my life. So I'm finally ready to go back to the real world, go back to my junior year. But I get there, it's a horrible transition all over again. The main reason for this was because I was safeguarded from anything that could harm me emotionally in the mental hospital. There's no cell phone, so there's no texting or calling. There's only PG movies. I've never seen Lion King that many times in 1 week. There's no computers, so there's no websites like Facebook, like Twitter, where you can go through situations on Facebook where you see an ex with someone that you don't like. See them at a party, you get upset. I can't even count how many breakups I know my friends have been through because of Facebook. So you're actually provided help to get away from those stressful situations, where now I'm exposed to them all over again. One of the reasons I fell right back into my same miss of depression was because I figured no one outside of that mental hospital truly understands what it feels like to feel depressed, to have suicidal thoughts, feel like you don't belong. So I figured, why talk about how I feel when no one truly cares or understands? Right before my senior year, my parents went off to Pittsburgh for a trip, which was 5 hours away. So being in high school, making a dumb decision, I decided to throw a party for my friends and I going into our senior year. The party gets busted. And I'll never forget having to call my dad, and I'm so upset, I'm crying. And I'm telling him, Dad, I'm so sorry for letting you down yet again as your son. Someone that should be making you happy and proud. All I do is disappoint you and upset you. But this time it felt 10 times worse, because my dad's the athletic director at my high school. I put his job in jeopardy. There are athletes at that party, including myself, who were suspended for half of our seasons. Now this is the point where, in my life, I knew that there were sports, which is where I could succeed at, and there was life, which is what I felt like I was failing at. And this was one point where they actually went between each other, where my life affected my sports because I was suspended for half of the season after I was named the #1 player, the captain going into the golf season. I let my teammates down, I let my coach down. I took the weight of everyone that was at that party. I took their weight and put it on my shoulders, carried around all that unfair pressure. And by the time my senior year started, I was constantly at a level 3 or 4, thinking about suicide, questioning how would I go through with it, going through a checklist of, well, would I drive my car over a bridge? Would I run it into a tree? I don't want my parents to come into my room and see that I hung myself. I don't know what to do, how to get away from this emotion or feeling. The one thing I said to myself over and over again was, I don't necessarily want to die, but the part of me that has depression, I want that part to die. And I would go around school with what I call the crappy day playlist, and there were songs that talked about depression, talked about suicide, feeling depressed. And I would play it at the loudest volume as I walk around school, so that even if someone yelled or screamed my name, I didn't have to hear it. I just wanted to be numb to the world. Now, there were a couple great things that happened in the beginning of my senior year, but it just didn't affect me because I'm numb to the world. Now, I was nominated for homecoming court, which is great. It's great to be accepted by your peers and your friends, but at this point, it's just numb to me. I was nominated for the individual playoffs for golf, which is something I should have been really happy about, really proud of, but at this point, it's just numb to me. Now I had to play a practice round for golf for the playoffs. That's something I was excited about because, one, I got to get out of school early, and two, if there's one thing that takes away my depression, bad thoughts, or emotions for those 4 or 5 hours, it's being on the golf course. So my dad picked me up that day. We're both excited on the car ride up. I get there, I'm excited. It was my first time really being at a real country club, and it was great. It was a great experience, and I played my best round that I played all year. I'm so excited to get in the car and tell my dad all about it. But I get in the car, my dad looks really sad. So I asked him, Dad, what's wrong? He says, nothing, I'm just really tired. So we get home, and I understood that because my dad works at a high school, it's late in the day. But when we get home, I said, Dad, we have to go pick up my car from school. He picked me up, so we gotta go back and get it. He said, no, just go upstairs, your mom's waiting for you. Now at this point, I start to panic because my parents and I didn't have that type of relationship, where they would just be waiting for me upstairs to see how my day was. I was very independent, always on the run, always on the go. We didn't communicate that much. So I get upstairs and I look at my mom. She's on the couch. She looks like she's about to cry. So I asked her, Mom, what's wrong? She says, nothing, I'm just really tired. Now my heart starts pounding, questioning, what did I do this time to upset my parents yet again? That's when my dad walked in with a duffel bag full of alcohol that I had in the trunk of my car. And when he dropped that duffel bag, my heart dropped with it, saying, here I am, their son. All I do is disappoint them, make them angry, upset. I can tell by the look on their faces, they don't even want me to be their son anymore. What's the point in being here if I can't make the people that mean the most to me happy? My mom, my dad, my sister. If I can't make them happy, what's the point in being here? That was the night that I tried to take my own life by going out of my 9-story bedroom window. When I hit the ground 100 feet below, I broke my left tibia, which ripped through the skin, broke my left fibula. I broke my femur, I shattered my pelvis, broke my jaw in 4 different places, broke my left wrist. I was bleeding internally from my brain and my organs. When I was flown to the hospital, I was in a coma for 5 days. When my parents got to the hospital, I was given 24 hours to live. 24 hours go by, I get a 48 hours to live. 48 hours go by, given a 40% chance to live. Now, I wake up from this coma, and everything's hazy. Everything is so hazy to the point where I don't know what's a dream and I don't know what's reality. But I remember my first conscious thought was looking around and realizing I'm in a hospital room. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm trying to feel around my body to see what's hurt. The first thing I notice is a trach in my throat. I can't talk. I literally have no voice. I look down at my left leg and there are still rods coming out of my left leg. My left wrist is wrapped up like I'm about to go into a boxing match, and I'm hooked up to 3 different monitors. Now I have no idea why I'm there. To this day, I don't remember going out my window. I remember everything that led up to that day. I can tell you about every hole of golf that day. But for some reason, the action of going out my window, I don't remember. So I had to lay there for days and weeks because the doctors want to see if I'll remember it on my own, but I just don't. Now my sister lived with her husband in Atlanta at the time, but she was there visiting one night. And I knew if there was one person that would tell me what happened, and be honest, it would be her. So my sister's visiting, and I had to mouth to her because I still can't talk. I mouth to her what happened. She starts to cry. And I knew that anything she's gonna say right now obviously isn't good if she's crying already. She looks back at me and she says, you went out your window. There were so many thoughts and questions that came into my head of, well, how drunk was I to accidentally go out my window? Who pushed me out my window? Who drugged me and put me out my window? She said, no one was in the room. You were completely sober. The words suicide attempt didn't even come into my head. Yeah, I knew I had thoughts of not wanting to be here, questioning what life would be like for other people if I just wasn't here. But I never thought I would go through with those emotions with that action. 19% of young adults contemplate suicide in a given year, but the ones who have depression are 5 times more likely to go through with it. I never thought I'd be a part of that statistic. So I had to lay there for days, which turned into weeks, which turned into months, in this hospital, down to 80 pounds. I can't move, I can't talk. I have no idea when I'll get my life back, and I have no one else to blame but myself for something I went through with. Now, within a month and a half of the suicide attempt, a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Mike Beates, asked my dad via email if he could talk to our family, my friends, about what happened. Did anyone see the warning signs? Did anyone see this coming, including Jordan? Now, my dad asked my mom. My mom said it's not a good idea. It's too soon for Jordan to start talking about this. Asked my therapist. Therapist said no, it's too soon. Hasn't even been 2 months since the suicide attempt of going out of a 9-story bedroom window. Asked my sister. Well, leave it up to Jordan. It's his decision, ultimately. My dad walks into my room, nonchalant, and he says to me, Jordan, there's a reporter who talked to me, and he just wants to ask you some questions about being in the hospital, everything you're going through right now, and just seeing how you feel. The reason I said yes to this, because here I am, the 18-year-old independent athlete, and like I said, I'm down to 80 pounds. I can't move. I can't talk. Everything that I knew in my life before, I don't have anymore. I'm dependent on everyone in this hospital to literally do everything for me. But I figured by literally spelling out my entire interview for this article, people on the outside of this hospital could touch the words that I don't have a voice to say, so that they're never in the position that I'm at right now, laying in this hospital bed. We did the interview for 3 months. The story came out in January 2008. Now, I had no idea until the day before it would be the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer. When the story came out, the feedback was tremendous. There were people who made phone calls, who wrote letters, who wrote emails, thanking me for not only telling this story, but thanking me for making them feel like they're not alone with how they struggle with their mental health. And all this time, it's great to be making a difference by telling my story, to be touching people by speaking on this subject, but I'm missing my entire senior year of high school, something I look forward to from day one. I remember the minute I entered high school, I said, I can't wait till I'm done, running everything on this campus, captain of all the sports teams. That's something I'm missing because of the suicide attempt, dealing with the repercussions of it. It's still tough for me to look back on my senior year, knowing that's something I can never get back, that entire year. My senior yearbook, I can't even tell you where it is right now. I probably only looked at it a couple times. I'm sure it's collecting dust wherever it is. Because again, emotionally, that's tough for me to know that the suicide attempt took away an entire year from me. Now, it's been just over 4 years since my suicide attempt. The obvious question is, how am I doing today? I feel great doing what I am today. I love my job. I don't think there's a more rewarding job in the world than being able to go around the country, even outside the country, to speak to people, all audiences. Last year I got to speak to Army troops down in Fort Polk, Louisiana. That was an incredible experience to speak to the troops and help them with what they're going through mentally and emotionally. It's also given me some great opportunities that involve Philadelphia, your sports teams. I got a chance to visit with David Akers. He read the Philadelphia Inquirer article, and he invited me to meet some of the Eagles. Granted, I didn't tell him I was from Pittsburgh until the end. And this year, just last month in February, on Valentine's Day, I got a very special call from the Asamoah Foundation and Nnamdi Asamoah. I got a call, said that he was a big fan. He saw my piece on ESPN's E60 and Outside the Lines. Said he saw all my videos on YouTube, and that he wanted to honor me with an award next month in April in LA at his gala. And that's an incredible thing. It's incredible emotion for me, but it's also very humbling to know that this story, going through physical rehab, emotional, mental rehab to get to this point, is inspiring and helping people, humbles me truly. On top of that, I have a very healthy emotional balance. I'm able to play sports again, my favorite sports. Basketball, I don't think my dad believed me until summer. I said, Dad, we can go shoot around, basketball. And I think what he thought was that I was going to stand in one position and shoot, sit down. Literally the same thing we've done since I was in elementary school we did. My dad rebounded, and I would just go around the key shooting shots. He'd give me he's a great passer, point guard. Pass me the ball, and I would tell him if the shot's going to be on or off. He was great. Hit me with the layup, all of that. That was incredible to have that back. Most importantly, obviously, was the golf. That's something my dad and I did from the time I asked for golf clubs, my sixth birthday, asked for golf clubs. We've been playing golf from the time I was 6 It's the time I was 18 years old during the suicide attempt. So to have that back in 2009, have that bond that I don't think we'll ever take for granted again, is something that's truly special for me. It helps with my emotional balance. I surround myself, with positive things, listening to music, driving around, getting a chance to hang out with friends, making sure that I'm keeping myself emotionally, mentally, and physically healthy as well. At the end of today, I don't want everyone in here to just take away my story, just take away me as a person, but really the entire mental health spectrum I try to touch upon today. That includes everyday issues we all go through, like stress, anxiety, sleep deprivation. Other disorders out there besides the ones that I mentioned, eating disorders, OCD, ADHD. Now there are problems out there that people struggle with, like alcohol abuse, substance abuse. And there are traumatic events that can happen to you. Like I said, someone close to you passing away, going through a difficult time in life. But that's the entire conversation of mental health that I hope that you can continue. I have two more things to say before I conclude. The first is that I want you to picture yourself in a closed room, in the dark, in a closet. When you're in a closet, you don't need the entire door to open to have hope. All you need is that one little crack that shows a beam of light to actually have hope. I believe that's what the conversation of mental health is this little beam of light that can give hope to other people. Now at the top of the pamphlets today, I saw 3 words earlier. They're faith, reason, justice. Now excuse me for using them out of order in this last sentence, but I have every reason to have faith that everyone in here will give the justice that deserves mental health, speaking and talking, continuing that conversation. So thank you so much for letting me come and share my story. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
If we have about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, 10 minutes for questions. If you have questions on mental health, my story. As a parent, I know a lot of parents ask me questions. Granted, I'm not a parent, but I'm sure I can answer any questions that you might have. So anything. Yes?
How did your friends treat you once you recovered? And I'm not sure if they knew about all the stuff you're going through, but how did they treat you afterwards?
Right. It was a big deal in my school because I was, I'm not trying to brag, but I was a popular kid, mainly because of my dad being the loud athletic director that he was. But I was popular. I was on the local TV show in the morning. I was on the announcements. I was doing everything. I was very proactive in school. So when people found out about it, it was on a Friday. And the school actually opened up on a Friday night so kids could go there and pray when this originally happened. And when people came to visit me, they didn't know exactly what to do. I mean, we're 17, 18, even freshmen and sophomores in high school are coming to visit me. It's tough to know how to handle that. I'm not even sure parents knew how to handle that. I think one of the things that I did, not necessarily intentionally, but just being my natural self, was that even though I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't recognize myself when I looked in the mirror, I acted like the same old Jordan, that JB as they call me. I was still smiling, I was still telling jokes. Granted, no one knew what I was saying because I didn't have a voice. But they looked at me and they said, "That's still Jordan." I was flirting with nurses, that's Jordan. Everything. I was just acting like my natural self, and I think that's what made them feel natural in treating me the same way. They've been very supportive of the work that I do. The one thing that Mike Vitesse, the reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer, got that no other reporter will ever get probably, is the emotional feelings from my friends. Because it's tragic for them. I'm able to talk about it, I'm able to get through this, but it's tragic for them. So my friends don't necessarily talk about it, but they do support me in what I do and supported me all the way through the hospital to physical rehab and everything else past that. Yes, sir.
I believe you are a Christian.
Yeah, yes, Christian.
How did that play into rehabilitation?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a Christian, how did that play? As a young adult Christian, we're taught to have faith and to understand that God is putting us through things for a reason. I didn't understand that at first. I was angry, I was upset, saying, "Why me? How could this happen? Why would you put me through this?" Kind of resentment at first. slowly but surely every day there was something that happened that showed me why I was going through this. And I had such family support, such friend support that would come and pray with me all the time. And I think when I really sat back and realized that I survived a 9-story fall. And some people say that's lucky. I say that finding $1 on the ground is lucky. I think it's a true miracle to survive a 100 feet fall. It is. And to be walking around right now is a true miracle. And during that time in the hospital, I knew that what I was going through was for a reason, but it just wasn't clear at that time. And I think one of the great quotes I believe is Martin Luther King is, faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the rest of the staircase. That's what I had to do, because there were signs every other day. It wasn't like every day things were getting better. Sometimes it felt like I was going 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. But slowly but surely there were signs that I was going to get through this. I'll never forget the first day I taught, and it was 2.5 months into being in the hospital, and I could put my finger on my trach. And my mom didn't know at the time, so she walks in first. My dad went to park the car. She walks in first. I say, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" She almost passed out. She was like, "Oh my God, wait till your dad comes up. He's not gonna believe this." Granted, I thought my dad was gonna have a calmer reaction than my mom. I was wrong. My dad walks in, and I say, "Hey, Dad, how's it going?" And the nurses thought someone was falling because he hit the ground. He cried, and he was just thanking God for this miracle of just hearing me, talk again. And there's so many miracles along the way. His favorite story is when I got the plates inserted for my broken jaw. I have 4 plates on my jaw, but you can't see it from the outside because it was done from the inside. And the surgery was only supposed to take 4 hours, but my dad's waiting, and it took 2 more hours than it was supposed to. And the surgeon is actually wheeling me up by himself. And my dad said, "That can't be good." And he said, "Your son actually broke 4 places in his jaw, not 2. I had to put 4 plates in." And he looks down at me. My dad says, "Did you already do it?" His face is puffy, but "Did you do it?" He said, "Yes, I did it inside of his mouth." It was the best job I probably ever did. My dad cried. He thanked God. I got down on his knees. And it became such a faithful moment all throughout this entire 4 years of being at the point where I am today. And I'm just so humbled and grateful to be here. And I think that's, when you read my bio, there's a lot of accomplishments in there, of magazines and TV shows, but they honestly don't mean that much to me because I'm just so humbled and grateful just to be alive, to be able to share my story. And that's why, I think that faith really helped me throughout that entire process. Yes?
You started this talking about your history with depression
Right.
and medication, and you also opened up and said that you're still utilizing medication at this
Right.
time. So how is your depression or your anxiety different now than it was? Is it the same? What kinds of things do you do to manage it? Are you more open with your peers and people you know? So how has the mental health aspect changed?
Right, absolutely. There's no difference between my depression from before the suicide attempt all the way up until now, but the way I handle and cope with it is completely different. Everything's out of the bag now. I can't really hide anything because I'm telling thousands of people that I don't even know my story. So of course my closest friends know, they recognize that. And I think what I'm more comfortable with now than before was that I talk to different people about different issues. I can talk to my friends about things that I can't talk to my sister about. Talk to my sister about things that I can't talk to my parents about. Or talk to my parents about things that I'm not sure anyone else can understand. And then still have a therapist who I'm able to talk to as well. And I think I have a great support system, which before I don't think I had. I felt like I just depended on my therapist and my medicine to get me through, when it does take a lot more than that when you're going through a difficult and tough time. So that's something that I still have, is not only a healthy emotional balance, but a strong support system that involves just more than 1 or 2 people. Yes?
2 questions, actually. One is piggybacking on that, and that is, how much do you think your sense of purpose today helps you in terms of managing your depression? And then piggybacking on that, when you speak to younger people, does that ever become a part of your message to them in terms of managing their own mental health issues?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The things that I'm doing now help me so much emotionally, mentally. It's difficult, I'm not going to lie. It's a very lonely job to have. I'm sure many people have seen Up in the Air with George Clooney. Granted, I don't fly. At 1 month, I did fly as much as him. But I don't fly and I don't travel as much as him. But it does become this process where people think when I travel all over the country, to California, to Texas, and all these great places where it's warm, they think that, you know, I'm going with people, I'm on vacation. It's a lonely job sometimes. I'm traveling by myself. I'm experiencing some great things like going to Disneyland by myself. Cooperstown. I was there by myself. It's difficult at times to keep yourself motivated to do what you are, because the natural part and the part that's meaningful to me every single time is seeing the expressions on kids' faces when I'm speaking and hearing their stories, getting the messages and emails from them afterwards. That's the natural part to me that keeps me going. Now, when it comes to speaking to kids and my message to them, it's a great effect because I mainly speak to college students now, but for instance, this month I think I'm speaking to 2 or 3 high schools and middle schools. And the effect is so great because one, they listen to me because they think I'm cool. That's great. I'm 22. I'm talking about things that they understand and I can relate to them. The other thing is that I'm talking about things that they've been through and that they are going through. I don't sugarcoat it. I know you're going through a tough time. That's sugarcoating it. I'm saying, I know junior year is stressful. I know what that's like, and they know exactly where I'm going with that. The other thing is that they're being educated in a subliminal way. They're laughing at jokes, my stories, but they don't understand that they're being educated on it. For instance, kids love the Hannah Montana joke with my friend who was the big defensive lineman football player. But I've known guys who come up and say, that was a funny story, but you were speaking the truth. Me and my guy friends only talk when we're drinking. And it made me realize, why am I drinking? Is this unhealthy, the way that I'm doing this? And so I'm glad that I can speak out to kids. And I know a lot of times schools, parents, administrators get nervous when I come to speak. I've been told that I'm too cool for this story. I walk. They think that's too cool for a 9-story fall for a suicide attempt. They want a scare tactic a lot of times for assemblies. The drunk driving assemblies is someone that's been through something tragic, and they're trying to scare people into not drinking and driving. Same thing with drug abuse. It's the same type of thing. I don't go into a school and scare kids out of, you have to go see a therapist right now. You have to know that you can't go and attempt suicide. You have to get those thoughts and emotions out of your mind right now. My whole plan is to plant an organic seed, in their mind, so that they know that they're not alone with what they're going through. And I've touched on so many different points that they're either going through or going to go through throughout their life. I have middle school students that I spoke at 4 years ago that are now in high school that still reach out to me and say, I still remember, when you spoke at my school, how meaningful that was to me. So I think that's the great thing, is that I can speak to the kids. I'm not speaking at them, I'm speaking to them. And I think that's why they are able to take it in so well. And it really does make a difference.
Thank you very much, George.
Absolutely.